Hi everyone, so this is a video that I have wanted to make for a while, but it is something that I feel I don't have to talk about. I have moved on with my life, but it's something that at this point I want to talk about. This is my experience with reality TV. Before reality TV, I loved my life. I was so grateful to be doing a job that I loved as a performer. I was always getting the chance to travel. I was always doing something new and exciting, and it was just something different every day. My career really was at a peak, credible, exciting jobs. I had an amazing, very reputable acting agent. I was working as an actress, a commercial model, a voiceover artist, and in between all the TV work, I worked as a hostess. So I would look after VIP clients at big sporting events. I was working all the time and I loved it. The kind of person that I was before reality TV, I guess I was really confident. I was fun, I was spontaneous, I always had a story to tell, and I think the most important thing for me is that I was happy. What motivated me to do reality TV was, it was the new opportunity that I was attracted by. So a year previous, I had just come out of a long 7-year relationship and we broke up 2 months before the wedding. Very quickly after that had happened, I started working as a dancer in the West End. I started living a very nocturnal life, I would say, in clubs. A new circle of friends, new relationships, and it was just a whole new way of life. It was actually almost like somebody had said to me, right, okay, you're gonna have now the opportunity to live your 20s again, but it was in a much more wild way. At this point, that's when I caught the eye of the casting directors. When the opportunity was first presented to me, I was like, no, I was dead set against it. For me, in my mind, like, I can't, as an actress, then, you know, even consider doing reality TV. It was just kind of, it was unheard of. But then the little devil on my shoulder was like, no, why don't you give it a go? Like, it's something new, it's something that you haven't done before. I felt like I'd kind of done everything else that I'd wanted to do, and now this new thing was being presented to me, and I was like, okay. I never thought about it like it would advance my career. And in hindsight, I really should have done, because anybody else in my position would have been like, right, okay, I'm going to use this as a platform to, you know, push myself further. I never thought of it like that. I just thought of it as just something new and fun and exciting. A casting director, friend of mine, had said to me, don't do it. Absolutely, categorically, do not do reality TV. It'll ruin your career. And I remember her saying it to me, but me being me, I did it anyway, because I had that little devil going, no, do it. It'll be fine. I basically thought that I knew better. I thought that I could do that, and then my life would be exactly the same as it was before. I could go back into the acting world and it would all be fine. Never did I imagine it could have had such a devastating effect on not only me mentally, but on my career as well. After it was presented to me, I'd gone in to meet the casting directors of the first show that I'd done. it was called Young, Free and Single. And I remember walking into the office and I loved the whole vibe. I loved them, I loved everything they were telling me about the show, I loved the whole premise of it. I just thought, wow, this really does sound fun. There's nothing, in my mind, there was nothing really that could go wrong with this. I really liked the energy and the vibe of it. And as soon as I walked out of that office, out of that meeting, I thought, yeah, I want to do this. The experience of that show was actually a really, really positive one. I was a little bit cheeky on it, you know. I was a little bit, I wouldn't say wild, but it was a dating show. It was a dating show, so it was all about being flirty and fun. That didn't do any damage. That was just, you know, I really, really enjoyed that. And I finished that show thinking, that was fab, and I made lifelong friends, and all in all, it was a really positive experience. But it was the start of a very slippery slope for me, mentally. I had decided to drop my acting agent at this point, and I took on a manager. I was being managed in a way that I'd never experienced before. You know, again, now, this was a completely new world to me. It was now all about being seen at parties, events, being pictured, getting into the papers, and the whole concept was all press is good press. So this whole new way of life for me was completely different to anything else that I'd done. You know, I was talking to journos like they were my friends at parties. A lot of the time I was drunk and intoxicated, so I was literally, I mean, I talk too much anyway without drinking, but it was always worse when I'd been drinking and I was drunk and I had no filter at all, and I was chatting to these journos like they were my friends, and then I'd wake up the next day to things being said in the papers that I'd said, and it was giving me the worst anxiety. And it was like this vicious circle of going out, getting drunk, doing and saying things that were just, you know, not okay, the kind of things that you do when you're drunk. Waking up to that being printed in the papers, it was like there was no escape from it at all, and it was like a constant thing, and I felt myself getting more and more and more sucked into this, I was just completely lost. I was partying way too much. Now looking back, I was using the drinking to kind of numb the overwhelming feeling of anxiety that I was giving myself. But I feel like it was all wrong. I was almost being looked after and guided in a way that was, you know, they were raising my profile, but it was all completely in the wrong way. It wasn't what I'd worked so hard for all those years. You know, I'd worked hard to have a good reputation, to have a fab agent, and to be really like excel in the thing that I love doing. And now all of a sudden, but I was just so wrapped up in this like almost like toxic world. I was just in a bubble, and I couldn't actually see what was going on when it was all happening. Anyway, it all came to a head when I told a story to a journo at the Sun newspaper, and that story went global. Sorry. It left me feeling really and just really, really disappointed in myself because I'd let it go so far. I'd let it go so far that I literally had lost all respect for myself. I was telling people stories of the things that I was doing. Because it was raising my profile and because it was kind of the world that I was living in, and I thought that it was okay, and it wasn't. And I literally feel like all the hard work that I'd put into everything in my life, I'd just ruined. I went home to my mum and dad's house after that had happened, and I just wanted to escape everything. I just wanted to get away. I just literally wanted the ground to swallow me up. And I didn't know how to get out of the mess that I was in. You know, people didn't even really know what to say to me. People were like, okay, well, don't worry, you know, it's all gonna be fine. It's just gonna be chip shop news, whatever they say. But it had like a massive, massive effect on me because it was almost like I had driven myself into this position and I just didn't know how to get out of it. Very, very soon after that, Big Brother showed their interest. And my first thought was, oh my God, I can't put myself out there any more than I already have done. If anything, I need to just escape this, and I need to just, it was almost like escape this nightmare that I feel like I got myself into. I just didn't feel like I was being looked after, and I thought this would literally be like throwing myself out of the frying pan into the fire. But at the same time, I thought this could potentially be an opportunity for me to not explain myself, but just to be kind of like, well, you know, yes, all this shit's happened. Yeah, I have made some really bad mistakes. I felt like I could go into Big Brother and revert back to just me, just being the like normal happy girl that I was before I even entered into this whole reality TV machine. The problem was, it was too late. I'd lost myself. I didn't even know who I was anymore. So it was just an even bigger mistake doing Big Brother, because I thought it would make things better, and it made things 10 times worse. So the casting process this time was completely different to the first. Hang on, sorry. The casting process this time was completely different to how the first casting process was for the first show that I'd done. The first show that I'd done, and I was coming at it from a completely different mindset, and this time I was coming at it from a really damaged, I can't stop crying now. I was coming at it from a really damaged place. And as much as I knew why they were casting me, you know, they were casting me as this glamour girl. And as much as it kills me to say it, it absolutely kills me inside to say this, but I'd become known as like this kiss and tell, wild party girl. I gave them what they wanted to see. I played up to it, but I kind of did it in the way that, okay, I've made this decision now. I'm gonna seal the deal with this show, and I'm gonna do it, and I'm just gonna be myself once I get into the house. So it was almost like, okay, acting mode on, give them what they want, dramatise this character in this role and, you know, really play into it. And, you know, once I'm in there, I'm in. I was so deluded in thinking that it was going to be okay once I was in the house after giving them all of that. And I know that now, but I was just really stupid and really naive and actually in the complete wrong frame of mind to be thinking rational thoughts. I wasn't being rational about it. But I didn't actually know that it would be, I didn't know it would be as bad as it actually turned out to be. During the process, the casting directors really got to know me. Everybody knew me as this kind of quite out there extroverted character, but really there's a complete other side of me that a lot of people that were kind of seeing this extroverted side were like, oh, we've never really seen that side of Laura. It was almost like a dramatisation of this character that I had kind of put out there, if that makes any sense. I was getting a lot of words of encouragement from the casting directors, so they'd constantly be saying things to me like, you're so sweet and you're so lovely and you're so genuine and people are really going to see that side of you. You're really funny and you know you don't take yourself seriously, and I think once you're in the house people are really going to see that and they're going to love you. Giving me encouragement to think, okay, yeah, I'm really making the right decision here. I've made the right choice by going forward with the show. It kind of put me at ease to know that I'd made the right decision. When it came to filming the VT, the dreaded VT that I have never watched, even to this day, I've never been able to watch it because it was that VT that essentially was the nation's first impression of me on this show. When I actually filmed the VT, I remember it being a really positive day. It was like, okay, we want you to dance in front of the camera and laugh and smile, and I was popping balloons. And, you know, of course I was giving them really, I mean, some of the stuff that I'd said, just literally, I want the ground to swallow me up, hence why I've never been able to watch it, because it just is so cringy. But it was almost like I've said, it was just dramatising this character. But I don't remember anything like really, really negative about it. I don't ever remember ever like coming across as a bitch or a Big Brother villain almost. So when I left after that day's worth of filming, I was like, oh yeah, you know, I've said some really cringy things, but never mind, it's fine. People will forget about that, and once I'm in, I'm in. The only thing I remember doing that VT that was even remotely like, you know, that people might not like was they said to me, okay, now do a shot where you're sticking your finger up at the camera. Again, I've never seen this, but I just remember them telling me to do that, and I thought, oh, I don't want to do that. That's really like out of my character and out of my nature to do, but I did it. So the night that I went in, I remember the head producer coming into my room, and she said, just be yourself, Laura. Just be your lovely, sweet, caring self, and people are going to love you. People are going to see the real you. And then she looked me in the eyes and she said, you're my winner. So obviously this gave me so much encouragement, and I trusted that it would be okay. And as much as I knew that, you know, I was going in as like this glamour, kiss and tell, awful, I know, but this kind of character, I just thought it's going to be okay, because people are going to really see the real me. After she'd left the room, I had ear blockers on, and they put a blindfold over my face, and I was very quickly put into the car, taken round to the studio. Bearing in mind I had my two main senses taken from me, I couldn't see anything and I couldn't hear anything. Somebody grabbed my arm and took me up, walked me up the stairs. to the 2 double doors that you stand in front of when you're about to go into the studio for the nation to see you and for you to be revealed. And I remember having that moment of, and I lifted my blindfold and I could see my VT through the crack in the door, and it was just my big face on the screen. And I was like, oh, like this, because I hadn't seen it at this point. And I remember the producer saying, no, don't watch it, put your blindfold back on. So I put my blindfold back on, just adhering to the rules, thinking, oh, well, this must be just something that they do to kind of like psych you up. And then the doors opened, and it was literally, I was literally blown back with the sea of booze. And it was a split second of thinking, oh my God, why is everybody booing me? What the hell have they seen on that VT? And as I was kind of going through the motions, walking down the stairs, I remember smiling and waving at everybody, and all the cameras were flashing, and I was posing for the camera and I was smiling, but I was just thinking, I felt really, really disappointed in what the producers had done. They had basically told me that everything was going to be okay, that they were encouraging me and saying people are going to see this lovely side of you. What they didn't do is show me the VT of what was going to go out to the nation before I went out. And I think now, looking back, that was an absolutely horrendous thing to do, because if I'd have seen what they'd edited and what this VT was, I think I would have pulled the whole thing. I think I would have not ever put myself in that position and that situation, that I'd have known that it would, be just the worst first impression of me as a person. I don't think I would have let it happen. As much as I thought it was all just fun and games and I was just dramatising a character, actually, I think if I'd have actually seen what was to go out to the nation, I would have put a stop to it. So anyway, then Emma Willis had said to me something on the lines of, so you think you're this big celebrity, how are you going to deal with being in the house? And I remember just going, no, I didn't mean it, but at this point there was booze, things were being thrown at me. So the minute I walked into the house, I just thought it literally couldn't have gone any worse. I walked into the house and I was smiley, and you know, it was, I think I was just overwhelmed with the shock, but I was trying my utmost to remain positive and just think it's okay, it's all a big pantomime, I'm going to be fine once I'm in there. I think I was about the 7th or 8th in there, so there was already a fair amount of people in there, and I got my champagne, and all I can remember for that first half an hour was asking the other housemates, did you get booed? Did you get booed? Oh my God, what was the reaction to you? Almost like wanting somebody to say to me, oh yeah, don't worry about it, I got booed as well. But literally everybody was like, oh, I had an amazing response, it was really good, everybody was absolutely buzzing on cloud 9, like, oh, it was amazing. And I was just overwhelmed with this shit. Like, mine was a totally different experience. So then when everybody was in, the first thing that we were set up to do was, there was a podium for each person, and each podium had a description on it. So like boring, nervous, happy, excited. Then there was one that said sexy. And I remember everybody rushing to their podiums, and there was 2 left. One of them said boring and one of them said sexy. And I remember me and one of the other guys, we were kind of like, ah, and he was like, I'm going to stand on the boring one. So I said, oh, well, great, I'll stand on the sexy one then. Already thinking, well, I've already kind of put that out there. Nobody wants to stand on the sexy one, but I stood on it. Not really wanting to, because I just thought this is just going to fuel the fire of everybody to hate me even more. But I stood on it, and I, you know, went with the flow. Anyway, my podium went red, and they said, and the narrator guy said, Laura, go and stand in the middle of the grass. So I did, and they said to me, okay, so you've been nominated to, well, you've been chosen to either leave the house now or choose another housemate to go instead of you. So I was already feeling just this like, oh my God, I just wanted the ground to swallow me up. I thought, I can't leave now, please God, I can't go after I've literally experienced all of this. I feel like I've had so much shit. I need the opportunity to just be in here and to make all this right and okay. So I literally didn't think anything of it. I just picked the girl that was stood in front of me, and that became a huge thing then. You know, she was pissed off. Oh, and then Big Brother had said to me, oh, by the way, neither of you have to leave. So they put me in that position knowing full well that neither one of us had to leave. But at this point I felt like, great, the outside world hate me, and now I'm on the back foot in the inside with the housemates, you know. And even though I was probably even though it was 10 times worse in my head, you know, it was these little things that were just making me even more nervous and more anxious and hating the situation that I was in. I went to bed that night really trying to forget it, really just thinking, right, that was the worst start ever. Really and truly, that could not have gone any worse. But the way that it's in my nature to kind of see the positive in things. And actually, I remember me and another housemate, and we were laying in bed in the bedroom looking at the other housemates all getting ready for bed, and we were in absolute hysterics. We were laughing, and it was this weird, surreal situation that we were now Big Brother housemates looking at the other Big Brother housemates, looking at what everybody could see on the outside world, but we were in the house. It was a very surreal situation, and as much as I was in hysterics, I think that was an emotion that was coming out. It was just like a release of this just utter, this situation that I was in that just wasn't a normal situation. I was now in a house being watched by the nation, and inside me knowing that it was literally the worst first impression ever. So as the days went on, I think it was maybe like, you know, I really tried to just forget everything. I made friends with another girl in the house, Evelyn, who was really, she was very, very early on. We kind of really found refuge in each other, and it was just nice to kind of, she made me feel safe. It was almost like I felt like, oh, it's my own little piece of like, I can have a friend in here that, you know, I can do this experience with. In the house, the whole theme of the Big Brother house that particular year was paranoia. So we didn't know that. We as the housemates hadn't been told that. So it was to make each other paranoid about what others were saying about us. They were writing things on the wall in red writing, almost as if it was in blood. They were calling us out on things that we'd like privately said to one another, and kind of like playing it out loud for everybody to hear. It was a real mind fuck. So I had absolutely no idea, and neither did anybody else, that was the theme that we were in. The furniture was all hard, There was nothing that was comfortable in there. There was nothing that was homely. Everything was black and white. For me, anyway, it was like being in a nightmare. It was like literally being in a living nightmare. After being in there for a few days, we had to do a task where the housemates were to dress as scarecrows. So we were scarecrows, and then crows would come out, so actual people dressed as crows would come out and attack us. I say us, it was literally me. So the first crow came out, and I can't remember, I've never watched it, but it was, I had custard poured over my head. Then the second crow came out and I was attacked with something else. I think it was like either mud or something that looked like shit, I don't know. It was just really like degrading, horrible things that they were coming out, and it was always me. And we were talking amongst ourselves, and we were like, what's happening? And then we were like, shit, this is the public. The public are voting who gets attacked. So I was really trying to keep my composure at this point when I was literally being, it was just constant barrage of, it was all happening to me. I went into the toilet after, and I was literally like wiping everything off me, and I thought, that's it. That's it. The public hate me. They want to humiliate me. And I did feel humiliated. I thought, this is literally going from bad to worse. And it was almost like this switch went inside of me. And the only way that I can describe it is it was like self-destruct mode. I'd been pushed into this corner of literally, I felt like there was no hope for me. I'd been made to feel like I was such a bad person. Everybody hated me. It was really how I was feeling, and it was an all-consuming feeling of self-destruct. That's when everything changed. That's when my behaviour with Marco ensued. After having therapy and talking about what I did, I have come to realise that it was almost like a mask that I'd put up to protect myself, to protect my feelings. And it was almost like I was saying, okay, I'm gonna be as extroverted as I possibly can. You can attack me, you can say whatever you want about this extroverted character, but it was to protect myself. And that's the only way that I can describe my behaviour. I lost all self-worth. I forgot that my family were watching, that my friends were watching. I had just no filter with the things that I was saying. There was no inhibitions. It was literally just like complete and utter self-destruct. That's the only way that I can describe it. Thankfully, after a week, Marco was voted out. And, you know, I say thankfully because it was almost like at that moment I thought, okay, Jesus, this is how I've been with him. At least if he goes now, you know, I'm not going to be able to get myself into any more kind of mess, any more so than I'd already done. And I remember him going out, And what they do on an eviction night is they turn the sound on, so we can hear the sound of the studio. We can hear what everybody's saying. And I'll never forget sitting on that couch and just hearing, "Get Laura out, get Laura out, get Laura out." It was like this constant loud barrage of people just saying, "Get Laura out." After everything that I'd been through and experienced up to this point, knowing that I was just making it worse for myself constantly, and then I heard that, and I think after that point I just went numb. I went numb. I can't actually remember half of being in that house because I've blocked it out since the moment I left. I've just tried to block it all out, but all I remember was going into autopilot mode. I've got to get through this. I genuinely thought that I would be voted out, like be the next one to be voted out, and I wanted to be. You know, I didn't want to go on the first night when I was told to go and stand in the middle of the grass and choose somebody else, because otherwise it would have been me. I wasn't ready to go then because I thought, no, I can make this better. But after everything that happened with Marco, I was just like, I need to get out of here. I have to go. I didn't want to walk because the kind of, not competitive side, but the side of me that doesn't want to give in. I think that's the right way to describe it. The side of me that didn't want to give up and give in, didn't want to walk. But I think it would have been best actually if I'd have left at that point. For me anyway, mentally. So I ended up staying in the house, I think it was for about 7 weeks, because it was right up until the end. I was just on autopilot trying to get through. I know that I smoked a lot. I know that I ate rubbish every day. Like literally we were eating bread and toast and pasta. We only got nice food if we were winning it. So if we won a task, we'd get the nice food and the nice rewards, but the rest of the time, it was just pure stodge. I felt drained, I looked horrendous, I was putting on weight, we weren't exercising, I just wasn't getting any of the things that, any of my outside world happiness that I would have had on the outside, I wasn't getting any of it in the inside, and I felt trapped because every time I felt like I wanted to go into the diary room and tell people and like scream and shout and say, I feel this and I feel that and I just want to escape, I just felt like, you know, people already don't like me, and that's a really awful feeling to know that you're not liked. It's something that I've never experienced before and never had that, you know, that feeling. And I think for anyone, like imagine being in that situation and having those feelings. It was awful. And then I had no escape from it. On eviction night, my eviction, I'll always remember it was the Friday before the final. And I can't remember who I was up against in the eviction, but all I remember thinking is when I was packing my suitcase and getting ready, I put my red lipstick on. It was almost like I was putting my armour on because I knew that I was going, but I wanted to go on that particular Friday night because it meant I would get my full interview with Emma. If you stay into the final, so there's 6 in the final, if you stay into the final, you don't get an interview unless you're the winner. So it was almost like I knew it was my time. I knew it was my time to be evicted. I knew I wasn't going to get in the final, and I didn't want to get in the final because I wanted my interview. So when my name was called, and obviously the booze came in, I had a feeling of, okay, this is my moment now. I have to be brave. I have to be strong. I knew what was coming. I knew what was coming. And I knew that I was now about to leave this house and go into the outside world. And obviously I knew how much hate I'd got So it was a really, really tough thing for me to do, to think, right, I have to be strong now. I walked up to the top of the stairs. I just remembered the doors opening. It was booze. And I walked down into the studio, and I'll never forget, there was a man who, he was almost like the person who psychs everybody up. So psychs all the audience up for when the people like come out of the house. And I remember him like, throw the sweets. And there was a whole section of people that were literally like launching sweets at me. Thank God it wasn't anything else, and it was just sweets. And I just took it. I just smiled. And I think when I smiled, I think when I smiled, like people were like, actually, I remember there was another crowd of people. There was about 4 or 5, so it was only a tiny amount of people. And they were like, we love you, Laura, don't listen to them, we love you. And literally as they were saying that, it's like, then I heard everybody like starting to cheer. And it was a real moment of me just thinking, hang on a minute, this whole thing has just been one big pantomime. First I'm being told that I'm hated, then people are shouting I love you, so everybody then follows and says I love you. It was like, it was just a really surreal moment of, this is just all absolute pantomime, dramatised for other people's entertainment. And I have been subjected to this onslaught this whole time. Anyway, so I walked out of the studio, got into a buggy and went round to the other side to have my interview, and I had to compose myself. I didn't cry. I don't remember crying. I remember just being quite, compose yourself, keep calm, keep strong, you can do this. And I was like, motivating myself to just, you know, this is your opportunity now to sit there and hold your hands up and say, yeah, I made mistakes in the beginning. I actually don't know too much about what I said because again, it's all a big blur to me, but I remember feeling really, really interrogated by Emma Willis. I remember her really, like, her eyes were burning into me, and she was almost like, I don't know whether it was me feeling like this because I already felt, you know, I already felt like I was consumed in this negative situation. I remember seeing my 2 friends in the crowd, and I remember just thinking, okay, this is all over now, for now. I'm just gonna tell them how it went. And I just thought, I want to say my piece, and I want to get out of here, and I want to go. Then I think I got in a taxi. I got in a taxi then with one of the producers, and we went back to the hotel room, and it was late at night because I think my eviction was 9, so by the time I'd got back to the hotel room it was 11, and I was absolutely mentally exhausted. I was absolutely shattered. And she said, I think you should watch some of the things that people have seen of you. And I was just like, I don't think I can. I don't think I can. I don't want to. I don't want to watch myself. I don't want to see any of it. And she said, no, I think you should, because then at least you can kind of see what people have seen. And so I watched on my phone the scenes of me and Marco together, and I was like, whoa. It shocked me so much. Because I was like, why, what the hell? I was just, all these things were going on in my mind. And then she showed me some of the articles, some of the news articles, and I just, it was just all a blur. Like, it was just all these negative words and things being said about me. Anyway, then I was given my phone back, and I just remember, like, not even knowing where to start. Imagine, I had Instagram, Twitter, I had all my WhatsApp messages, I had Facebook, I had all these people from my past, from people that didn't know me, my family, my close friends. I had all these people putting their 2 penny in, they expressing how they felt. And I just didn't know how to deal with it. I remember I was still in the hotel room. I can't remember whether this was on the night or in the morning when I woke up, because it's such a blur. But I remember the producer saying to me, okay, so who do you want to ring? And I rung my auntie. And I remember her saying to me, she said, I have to laugh because of the way she said it, but she was trying to make light of it. And she went, well, there was some hair-raising moments, darling. And, like, bless her for trying to make light of it. And I was laughing, and I was like, oh, God, what the hell have I done? What have I done? And then, so I just didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to handle it. And then I remember getting the producer, this was the next morning, she said to me, right, okay, so you're gonna go home now? And I was like, okay, that's so weird, because remembering I'd had months and months and months of, like, psychiatric testing, I'd had months of being in this process. I'd then been put in hiding in Stonehenge with somebody with a minder for a week. I'd then been put in the house for like 7-8 weeks. And now all of a sudden it was, oh, okay, now you're just gonna get in a car and go home. And it was a real feeling of, I didn't even know how to feel. I remember sitting in the car, and it was like obviously broad daylight, and the only way I can describe it is when you've been out on a night out and you've gone to an after party and you're on your way home in the taxi, and it's that feeling of like just pure, like, you don't know what to really do with yourself. It was like that. It was like all these people walking past me in the street, these cars passing by, and I didn't know how to deal with any of it. I don't know if this is even making sense, but it was almost like I'd been in this little bubble, and now I was on the outside world. When I got back to my apartment, my friend that I'd previously lived with had moved out, and I was there on my own, and I just remember like lying on the floor, on the kitchen floor, like literally I was sat down with my head in my hands, and then I just literally remember like collapsing and lying on the floor, not knowing what to do with myself. I didn't know who to ring. And it's not like I didn't have the support. It's not like I didn't know who to ring because I didn't know who was supporting me. I didn't want the people that loved me to know what I was going through. I wanted to just deal with it on my own and hope that it would just all go away. I'd sit in silence and just I had nothing left to give. I had nothing. It was the darkest, loneliest time of my life. Very soon after it, very, very quickly, and I'm talking literally within probably a week, I realised that my life was not going to go back to how it was before. I was told by the people that had previously employed me that I couldn't go back to work. I couldn't go back to the hostessing job that I once had and that I loved. The lady that used to book me just said, I'm really sorry, but the family that you've been looking after, I looked after a family at the at Chelsea Football Club, and a very, very VIP family, and she said to me, I'm sorry, you can't go back. They've seen you on TV, and it's just, sorry, we can't have you working there anymore. Which was a huge blow to me. I was just like, wow, I can't believe that I have let that happen. Even the clubs that I was working in didn't want me back. And this is nightclubs as well. Like, I would never have ever thought, but because of all the negative press and the negativity that was coming along with the baggage of Big Brother and everything that was happening, they didn't want me to go back. I wouldn't have dreamed of even trying to go back to an acting agent. Like, absolutely no way. I had no confidence left. I felt ashamed, embarrassed. I was just disappointed. You know, I was doing the odd things here and there that came off the back of doing a reality show. So I had like social media posts on Instagram and stuff to tide me over, but it wasn't, you know, it wasn't what it was all made out to be. Like, when I was going into the show, they were like, oh, you're gonna have so much work after it, your life's gonna change, like beyond your wildest dreams. My life changed, but it literally ruined my life. It ruined it. A few more weeks after that, I'd said to my friends that I was working with in the clubs, I said, I have to work. I've got to work. So in the end, I did end up going back to one of the clubs, and they were tiding me over. It was absolutely fine. But then one of my friends said to me, who I'd been friends with for years, he said, Laura, honestly, I would just leave London at this point. Like, get away, go and have a break somewhere, have a breather, just reset, just find yourself again, and really just distance yourself from this whole situation. So we went to Dubai together, and we very quickly formed a relationship. He was almost like my saviour at the time. He really, really saved me from the situation that I was in. And he held his arms out, and he really took me in and looked after me. I actually decided to leave London altogether. I packed my bags, I moved out of the house that I was living in, and I moved back up to near Leeds, where he was from and where my family was from, because I thought that would be the best for me. He was working in Vegas and LA at the time, so I went over there to spend time with him. Really, actually, at this point, it was the first time I'd felt happy again. I felt happy and free, and I was living my own little life again without all this kind of toxicity that I'd got involved with. And very, very soon I got pregnant with my little boy. That was literally 5 months into me and his dad being together. So that was the next little chapter of my life. That really changed everything again. You know, I was now pregnant, I was having a baby. My life became about that. And, you know, I had Jax. I was happy again. You know, I really felt like I'd removed myself from everything, and I was happy just to live my life again. Also, around this time, because of the kind of reputation that I'd had previous to the reality TV, and the relationships that I'd built in the industry, I had a producer friend. He was a film producer, and he said to me, I think you should get back into acting, get back into doing the thing that you love. I got with this, he introduced me to an acting agent, a very reputable one, and I was so proud. I got with him, and I was auditioning again. I got cast in BBC Doctors, and I was just over the moon, because for me that was a real feeling of, okay, I've been cast again, and you know, I haven't got this baggage hanging over me. I'm now moving on. When Jax was about 18 months old, I started realising that I well, not realising, but I was suffering from insomnia. I was having nightmares at night when I was actually asleep, when I could actually finally fall asleep because of the insomnia, but I was having these nightmares of being watched. I was, you know, having these horrible night terrors. I was racked with anxiety. I had anger issues. Even the tiniest thing that people would say to me, I would blow up. It was like I was this pressure cooker, like literally about to blow at any point. I just wasn't me, and I'd say to my family and my friends, I just don't feel like me. I cried all the time, even things that weren't even like remotely connected to anything that had happened to me. Things were setting me off, so I was an emotional wreck, really. I was also horrendously thin. I didn't realise that I was so thin until my mum said to me, I'm really worried about you now. It's got to the point where this is not okay. Something needs to happen. And at this point I was under 7 stone, so I was about 6.5 stone. But I hadn't realised it had happened. It just naturally, gradually happened. And it was a real physical effect of what had happened to me mentally. I'd tried to block it all out. I'd tried to get on with my life. But I was having like I was seeing the physical effects of how like mentally damaged I was. When I finally realised, I think I saw a picture of myself. I went to Ibiza to see my friends over there, and I saw a picture of myself in a bikini, and it was just pure shock. It was like, even though I was living in this body, I was seeing for the first time actually what I looked like. So that was a real moment of realisation that something needed to change, but I just didn't know how to change it. I didn't know what was going on. In January this year, so literally we're talking 8 months ago, I was offered a hypnotherapy session, and it was at that point the therapist said to me, I think it would be good for you to talk, not just to have hypnotherapy, but to really talk about what you've been through. And at first I was a little bit, no, it's okay, I'm fine. But I think that was my way of, I was too scared to revisit anything. I was too scared to kind of go back over everything that had happened. You know, I thought I was finally in a place of happiness, I would say, but I clearly was holding on to all this pain. After having months of therapy with her, she said, you've been suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. You have been through so much, and it's kind of come out in a physical way. It's affected you mentally. You are mentally damaged from what's happened, and it really has taken me up until this point to really be okay to sit here and to share my story, because like I said at the beginning of this video, it's something that I feel I don't necessarily have to talk about because it's very hard for me, but I almost want to talk about it as part of my process in laying it to rest. Something else that I've done for myself this year is to train with a PT, and I am really proud to say that I'm now over 9 stone, and for me that means so much because it just means that I've come on so much physically as well as mentally. My trainer is a huge inspiration and motivational figure in my life. He's really kind of helped me, as well as my therapist, and I think those two together have really helped me become physically and mentally stronger this year. I was always really scared to do this video, to revisit everything. I still clearly have a lot inside me, a lot of pain, I think a lot of anger as well, when I've been kind of talking about it and reliving it. Just, I feel like so many things weren't explained to me. You know, I as much as I dramatised this character on my VT, like I never saw the VT. I think I should have seen that for sure. I think some of the things in the house that happened, like the Scarecrow task that we did, the fact that the house was, the theme was based on paranoia and we never knew about that, they didn't tell us about that. All these little things that happened, I just feel at this point now, actually talking about it and looking back, I feel like I was really taken advantage of. As much as the producers were doing their job in finding somebody like me to put on TV, and as much as I was giving them it back, it was all this process was to see what I would be like in the house, how I would react to things, what kind of TV that I would make. And then the minute the show finished, that was it. It was like, see ya. And it was all left for me to deal with. And I think that's the hardest thing for me, to know that I was taken advantage of in that way. As much as I am in a much better place now, I will always have that as a media footprint, and that is the thing that affects me to this day, and I'll never be able to get away from that. That was something in my life that happened that I'll never be able to get away from, because it was so publicised. So I think all that I can do at this point is carry on doing what I'm doing, carry on being better every day, and even just talking about how I felt, how I feel, will in time make it feel better. So thank you for listening. Thank you for listening.